and get started. Again, welcome to the Career Prep Series, Landing the Job You Want, with today's session, Setting Goals. And our guest today is Amy Pierce-Danders of E3 Coaching Studio. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it very much. We're just gonna flip sharing here.
Yep. And it's over to you.
Perfect. Welcome to goal setting, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. As Eric mentioned, my name is Amy Pierce-Danders. I am the founder of E3 Coaching Studio. Often people wonder, what does E3 stand for? And it stands for Equip, Empower, and Elevate. My goal with my business is to help individuals move their purpose and their presence into action. And the key way we do that is by helping individuals such as yourself as students figure out, what is my next step? Oftentimes when I'm doing things such as this, people wonder, why are you doing it? I'm here today because you as a student matter to me, because community matters to me. Even though we may not be relations by family, I wholly believe in the 6 degrees of separation, and that in some way you are going to touch my life in the very near future. And personally, I did not have anybody to talk to me about goal setting. It wasn't that it wasn't important in my family. I just don't think it was ever a thought. And so when the career readiness team, when Eric and Krista approached me, I was like, heck yeah, I'm on that. That fits both my personal and professional missions, is to help you become a better you and to embrace who you are. So we're going to just move right into things. So over the last few weeks, I've had the opportunity, because I have some teacher friends, to say, hey, can you do me a favor? Can we ask your students, what about goal setting is important to them? And these were the most common questions that came up. How do I do it? When do I do it? Why should I do it? And so that's what we're going to concentrate on today. Although you will see in the next slide that some people were thinking about future or careers or finances or grades. We each individually have what's important, what our current state is, and what's happening in our mind. And so we'll try to cover a lot of those, and we'll walk through the why, the when, and the how today. So if any of these words resonate with you, just drop a yes over in the chat room so we know you're there. So why are goals important? For me personally, I'm a why person. If you say, let's do this, my brain automatically, why are we going to do this, even before we get to the how? So goals create a compass for us. They let us know if what we're doing aligns to our true self. And what I mean by that is we have a lot of external pressures. We have parents, foster parents, tias and tios, and neighbors who all want things for us. That's not to even mention our friends, the media, what we're hearing from our peers of things that we need to do. And goals give you an opportunity to figure out, does this fit me and where I want to go? They also, and this is key for me, let me know when I'm off track on things. Because we're going to walk through the process, we'll show you how goal setting can help you determine whether or not you're in the right place. It also helps you chunk things down. You say we take a big dream. What do we do with that? It seems insurmountable, and goal setting lets us take it into bite-sized pieces so that we can get wins all along the way. When should we set goals? Is anybody out there familiar with this picture? You're just taking a flying leap. You're stretching yourself. And that's exactly when goals should be set. Anytime that you are walking into the unknown or you're stretching and there's something you want to achieve. Oftentimes, both of those things can marry amongst one another. And for me personally, a lot of people create a daily to-do list. I create a daily goal list. There's things I want to check off, but not just because I want to get them done, but I want to feel like I am achieving on a consistent basis. And most people, there's few people in here that would probably tell you that I'm a go-getter, but I'm going to share a secret with you. I'm not really. I'm a procrastinator. And so unless I have my goal list for the day and my items chunked out, I might not get anything done at all. So now let's talk a little bit about the why, the how it all comes together. I am a huge believer in the SMART theory of goal setting. What I mean by that is goals that have 5 components. They're specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. Excuse me. So say I have a goal that I want to achieve. Right now, everybody's going through a lot when it comes to COVID. COVID's a curious year, 2020 is. And if you're in high school, if you weren't already, you learned last night that you are going to be moving to online learning on Wednesday. And so your heart might be a little bit heavy because you're going to miss working on projects with your friends. You may understand that some of your classmates, their families are hurting. Either maybe an adult has been laid off or they're working extra hours. Or maybe your classmate doesn't have the tools that they need to complete school in an authentic and real way. And so a SMART goal to marry those. Oh, also, say perhaps that you want to gain additional leadership skills because you're on the basketball team and you want to move into more of a role model position on the team. And so you get to thinking, you're like, how can I do this? I'm feeling kind of weird in 2020. I don't feel as connected with my friends. What can I do to do this? And you have an aha moment. And your aha moment is you're going to create something called a COVID Care Club, a C3. You'll find that I really, really like things that play well together. But a COVID Care Club, that's not really a goal. But if you were to say, I'm going to start a COVID Care Club by recruiting 10 friends to complete 20 random acts of kindness using our natural gifts and talents instead of money by 12/31/20, that's a SMART goal, and it encompasses all 5 of these components. From there, what you will find is Eric, at the end of this, will share a website where they have put an amazing amount of goal setting tools. And one of those tools is this SMART Goal Action Planner on their website. So talking further about our COVID Care Club, that's our fictitious goal for the moment, is this action sheet allows you to chunk and make those items known. What are your tasks? What resources do you need? What's your timeline? If you look to the middle part, because we've already set our goal. So some of your tasks might be, need to recruit 10 friends. How are we going to let people know that we're doing this? How will we know when we're successful? What are the needs in our neighborhood, in our communities? So you pull together a Zoom, just like we're doing today, And you start brainstorming and chunking out what needs to be done, who's responsible for it, and when will it be done, so that you have a timeline. So say some of those goals are what we call backwards mapping. What are some of the challenges in the community? And you find out that one of your classmates doesn't have ready access to the internet. We're in social distancing mode, but you talk to your parents and say, hey, can my friend Joe come over and hang out in our kitchen for a couple of hours each day? Promise to keep distance, but that's so he can complete his homework and do the projects. Maybe you find out that one of your neighbors' parents, English is their second language. And so being moved into this world of Zoom and Google Classrooms and Seesaw and Edgenuity and all of these worlds, so you say, I speak Spanish, I can go over and show those parents what exactly teachers are saying. And so there you have your COVID Care Club. You will be completing 20 acts of kindness through natural gifts and talents that you and your 10 classmates have. And you'll know you'll be successful when you've completed those acts, everybody's invested, and then they're completed by New Year's Eve this year. Hopefully we're in a different world at that time. You achieve through benefit of that goal, your leadership skills have increased. Your project management, your heart is less heavy because you're hanging out with friends. And then also you have the opportunity to change lives. So one of the big things that we saw out there is, how does this help me with my future? How can goal setting? And that's probably a commonality, whether you're in middle school or high school. So what a BHAG is, if you see the big hairy monster on my screen, that's a big, hairy, audacious goal. So in our last couple of minutes together, we're going to focus on how can goal setting help me figure out my future. Again, here we have the template. And so what is it that you need to do? As a believer in that we are whole, unique people, I believe that your interests, your natural talents and gifts, excuse me, and your skills all need to be taken into account. So one thing that I would suggest would be visiting Career One Stop to take the values, interests, and skills inventories so that you can learn more about yourself and what career options you can begin investigating. So to make this a SMART goal, you could say, I will use Career One Stop to take the values, interests, and skills inventories so I can learn more about myself and what career options I should begin investigating by January 1st, 2021. I will use the information I learn about myself to complete 3 job shadows and informational interviews by April 1st, 21. Oops, went ahead too quickly. And so just in a visual format, you can see here, Career One Stop is an amazing wealth of resources where you can learn about careers. So say you take the inventories, and the inventories tell you that you are a social person and that you have a deep conviction for helping sick people. You can begin utilizing that resource to look at videos, see what schools are available, what opportunities might be in an apprenticeship format or in the military. Ken ISD has an amazing program upcoming soon called Groundhog Shadow Day that you will be able to register for, I think later this fall, winter in December. We also, informational interviews. You would be amazed at the people who, if you call and say, hey, I'm Amy, and I'm really interested in learning about what you do every day, how often the answer is yes. So that's what I have today about goal setting, hoping that you are going to have some amazing questions for me. In the meantime, here's where you can find us.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Amy. Well, we're going to ask if you have any questions at all. Please do not hesitate to enter your questions into the chat, and I will fill the silence by asking a couple of questions myself, but I'm going to ask you as students and you as educators, please enter your questions in. And I also wanted to share a quick quote that I had read once and find to be very inspiring. I think it really speaks truth. A goal without a plan is just a wish, right?
Yep.
If we don't make a plan for something, all we're doing is wishful thinking. I do appreciate you talked about the SMART goals, Amy, and chunking those down into little steps, because I think sometimes the problem for people when it comes to goals is just that it feels very overwhelming. So that leads me to a couple of questions that I have for you. And again, please, if you have questions, enter them in the chat box. But my first question was, there are a ton of people who have a hard time accomplishing their goals, but there's also a lot of people who don't know even how to determine which goals to chase. I mean, they don't even know, like, well, I've got a lot of things I want to do, but I don't even know where to start. So what suggestions do you have for people who don't know which goals to start with?
I would say sit with yourself for a small period of time so that you know and see what speaks to you. Which of those dreams, thoughts, wishes, as you mentioned, keep nagging at you? What keeps pulling at you? And generally, that is the thing you should be concentrating on the most in the moment.
Great, great, great. Okay, well, I have another one. So you mentioned that it's hard, or I should say, I would say it's hard for people to set goals. There are some people who, even trying to do the SMART goals, still have a hard time actually achieving them. Why do you feel like even when they know that they're supposed to, you've explained the SMART goal, sometimes people still struggle with it. Why do you think that? Even yourself, which was totally a shock to me to say that you would be a procrastinator. Why do you think that people?
That's my natural state, Eric.
Why do some people struggle to meet their goals, even when they know that there's this formula that could help them?
Honestly, I think it is not taking the time to chunk it out, to make sure that our goals are measurable, that they're attainable. One thing that I have struggled with throughout my lifetime is maintaining my weight. And okay, I'm going to lose X amount of pounds by this day. Well, that's really just pie in the sky, a lot of wishes, unless I'm chunking it out to say, I will do this. I will exercise 3 times a week. I will, Eric, you'll be happy. I've finally given up Diet Coke. This is water.
Good.
But that I will limit, just confession to everybody, I'm a huge Diet Coke addict for many, many years. Recently gave it up, day 36. So,
good for you.
But it took for me to do that of chunking and putting that out. Okay, I will reduce my consumption by this much by this day, instead of just making these big, hairy, audacious goals without chunking them out.
That's good. That's good. No, that's true. I mean, chunking, I think, makes a ton of sense. And you mentioned earlier too, even just your checklist and your to-do list. I'm definitely a to-do list checklist person. And sometimes I feel like my checklists become a little too big and too heavy. And so I feel very overwhelmed because there's so many things. Sometimes when you just realize, okay, I can't get them all done today, but if I can get 3 of those, right? Setting, you might have your big list, but minimizing that and making it a little bit smaller and manageable. I do have a question that came in here. It says that you mentioned informational interviews. So what are some other goals that students could follow when it comes to determining a career path?
Thank you, my friend Sheena, for putting that out there. Appreciate it. Other things that students can look at is really delving into that informational interview, finding out not just with one organization, but multiple organizations. what fits them. Are you more of a small company business? So you would thrive in an entrepreneurial or startup environment, or like one of my recent mentees, she really has a drive to make change and impact, but she likes the stability of a corporate structure where everything's in its place. So those are some other things that you can do is, what kind of environment do I like? We mentioned job shadowing. Job shadowing is an immense way to find out whether or not something sings to your heart. The other thing that I would challenge students to do is, generally when we talk about careers, we know of maybe 2 or 3. Let's take the medical field. We know there's a nurse, there's a doctor, and there's a physical therapist. There are thousands of other careers. So what I challenge you as students to do is find 3 other careers that you have never heard of in the field that you're looking into and research those, because your job may not exist for the future and you're going to have a lot of them.
Good. Thank you for that. Well, I'm going to ask another question here. And this can be going towards career planning, but it's also just careers in general. I've heard the term a lot of times. People say, well, what's your 5-year plan? When people go to an interview, what's your 5-year plan? Especially talking to our young people, what do you feel about this idea of a 5-year plan? Do you agree with that idea of creating a 5-year plan? Yes or no? And if so, why? And how would you go about doing that when it comes to goals? Sorry.
Yeah. A lot of the educators, a lot of parents may not like me on this. As a high school student, a 5-year plan can be good, but I'll be honest, with me, it would have been extremely daunting. That's a long time into my future, especially when I'm 14 or 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, feeling like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders, and then I have to pick out my plan to move forward, when that's not really the case. We just have to plan our next few steps. So for a 5-year plan, when it comes to a student, that'd be great if you know exactly what you want to do. If you know, hey, I want to be an architect, I want to be a CNC programmer, that's great. But if you have some investigation within that plan, has to be time for you to investigate to find out who you are.
Good, really good. And I also want to mention that Krista had posted in here that researching jobs is a great step, as Amy was mentioning. She recommends onetonline.org. So
yep, and I'm using a resource. Yep.
And I like what you said about the 5-year plan, because I threw that out there because in the career, a lot of times people will ask you, what's your 5-year plan? But for a young person, even at my age, I still struggle. The idea of 5 years is way, way too big. How do we break that down to smaller chunks? Or for maybe even a young person, their 5-year plan is to just figure out what I want to do, figure out by doing the research. Like, my job is to research over the next 5 years to figure out.
Right.
Not to even figure it out, but to just do the research.
Yeah, when I'm working with students, we might do a vision board for a 5-year plan of, what do you want your life to look like? What are the important components that 5 years from now you really want to achieve? And then we can backward map of how that looks.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. And I also wanted to mention one other thing you mentioned earlier about one thing that you mentioned earlier was about like trying to lose weight. And so you set goals for yourself. I love that, because one thing that a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to set goals for myself. I do that every year. I do New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolutions are not goals, right? Because oftentimes they say, I want to lose weight, but they didn't set a specific time or a certain amount, and they didn't chunk them down. And that's why I think a lot of people aren't able to meet their New Year's resolutions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent,
yep.
Excellent. Well, I want to wrap things up. I've got a couple more slides here to share, and then we'll wrap it up with that. But let me go back to sharing and see if I can get to the next slide here. All right, so everybody who has attended today, I appreciate you coming on. I do ask, if you're willing, to go ahead and take a survey for us. This is the first time we're offering this program, so we're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. So we'd love to hear your feedback. And the link to that, it would be bit.ly/career prep jobs -student for students. So bit.ly/career prep jobs /student for the students. And for educators, it is bit.ly/career prep jobs -educator. And we'll make sure we get that put into the chat box if it's not in there right now. But again, educators is bit.ly/career prep jobs -educator. Because we do want to find out from you what's working about this, what's not. I know this is still new, we're still learning, but we definitely can see this being a series we can continue on and using in the future. Want to share also too, I want to say thank you for Amy Pierce-Danders for coming on. Thank you, Amy, so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And she is gracious enough to say she would leave her email address for us. So it's amy@e3coachingstudio.com. So if you want to follow up with her, or you had a question that you were just hesitant to ask because you were just a little bit nervous about doing so, even in the tech chat box, or maybe it's just something a little more personal, she said you're welcome to reach out to her at amy@e3coachingstudio.com. And finally, did mention that we would have additional resources, and we'll also find another way to get it out. I know that we have one teacher had a lot of students coming on, Mrs. Gold. We'll make sure we can get this link to you, but there are links to additional resources like that goal setting sheet. We have gone ahead and put that in this link here. It's bit.ly/career prep setting goals. So bit.ly/career prep -setting goals, and that is actually going to give you access to a lesson. I don't know if the lesson plan is there, but we do have some resources, some things to share that you can use with students. Again, my name is Eric Kelleher, and you can reach me at erickkelleher@kentisd.org. With that, I want to say thank you for your time. We do intend to have 4 more sessions. Tomorrow, we're going to be meeting, and we're going to be doing a job search 101 with Alex from Fine Zylstra. So we'd love to have you attend. Again, if you have follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. But thank you so much for your time, and have a wonderful day, everybody.
Take care. Thank you.